Welcome to the Businessmen and Women of Color podcast. I am your host, Ann Alston, and it is once again my pleasure to bring quality programs to all of you. I am excited, yes, again and again and again. I can't tell you how excited I am to be back here in the fourth season of the BMWC podcast platform, a global platform that is promoting and unifying individuals from around the world regarding their career and business endeavors. And from this information that we're talking about today, we are sharing it with you so that you can make informed decisions about your career and business. So make sure that you are checking out all the pages and listening to all the podcast recordings that we're going to have this year. We have a tremendous amount of information that is, oh my goodness, it is like on fire. You have to listen to what is going on in the BMWC this year in 2019. So make sure that you have pen and paper and make sure you take lots of notes and don't miss this opportunity to also be part of the BMWC when we come back again on year 5 in 2020. Also, I'm going to ask if you can like, share, and vote for your favorite podcast participant. We are looking to award 1 or maybe 7 people who is participating in the podcast this year, from best podcast to favorite author. So make sure you vote for your favorite. So if you like this interview today, make sure you hit the like button and vote. Before we get started with another dynamic speaker we're going to have today that's going to be talking about marketing, we want to first take a moment to thank our corporate sponsors, which are My Financial Home, Evangelism Radio, J&F Enterprises, Sears Consulting, Autism Families Rock, Awakening to Love, Eli Natoli, Kimberly McLemore, True Synergy, and Platinum Financial Services, along with our other 50 some odd BMWC participants who is participating this year and helping to make this season a huge, huge success. So today we have another amazing entrepreneur that's going to be on here talking about marketing. Her name is Deborrah Ashley. Deborrah is the founder of Thrive View Marketing and is known for helping leaders go from simply showing up to standing out as the obvious choice to attract buyers, opportunities, investors, and partners. Deborah's mission is to help more than 50,000 experts package and monetize their genius by 2012. And as a serial entrepreneur and former board member of the Atlanta chapter at the National Black MBA Association, to date, she has helped dozens of entrepreneurs make over $1 million and generated more than $300 million for businesses. So I'm going to let you continue reading her bio as we bring Deborrah to the podcast. Welcome, Deborrah.
Thank you so much, Ann. Thanks for having me.
No problem at all. So I gave a little bit of your bio, and it sounds like a dynamic thing. Why don't you just go ahead and introduce yourself, where you're from, and what was your interest as you were growing up?
Sure. I'm Deborrah Ashley. Grew up in New York, born in London, England, but obviously I've been here all my life. But I've always been a person in marketing. You know, it's when we talk about people who go to school and they never do anything close to what they went to school for. I went to school for marketing and public relations. So it's always been a love of mine. And that's really what was of big interest. Growing up, I read personal development books. I was always into marketing. So that's really what drove me into the career that I'm doing right now.
Okay. And so when you were, a young kid, did you always have this interest, or was it something that kind of sparked along the way?
Well, the funny thing, my interest was in psychology. I think because I had such an amazing guidance counselor. So when I finished high school, because we always have to figure out what we want to be when we grow up, right? So I knew that I wanted to be a guidance counselor. Went to school, obviously, did the 4 years of more of a general degree, but the undergrad was in PR, and I was thinking I was going to do a master's in the marriage and family counseling. But then, it's so interesting now with HIPAA that I was even able to sit in on a session, but a therapist allowed me to sit on their session with a marriage counselor. And after that, I knew I couldn't do it. It wasn't for me.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay, so what was it about that particular session that kind of changed your mind?
Well, I'm the type of person, and I think a lot of therapists or psychologists are like this, but you have to be able to channel that. I'm the type of person that I would take that home with me, meaning that if someone else is having issues and, if I'm giving my advice and whether they're not following it or things are not going well, it would bother me. So I wanted to have more of a career where I didn't have to necessarily think about things when I got home, or I didn't have to feel that I'm responsible for other people's lives, even though I'm still somewhat responsible, obviously now on a business end. But the interesting correlation between that is in the coaching business. So I'm still coaching people to get to a goal that they're not able to achieve on their own. So it works out.
Okay, all right, fine. So you decided not to do the marriage thing and opted for the coaching. What was some of your first experiences when you decided to go into the coaching realm? Did you find it easy, or did you had to work to develop that coaching skill?
Well, I got lucky with this. So, of course, when I figured out what I really wanted to do or what I love, I decided to go to business school. So, I got my MBA. During the time, I took an assistantship, and I never even heard of these small business development centers. But within the school, typically when they bring in a business consultant, they bring in someone from the business school. So that was probably the highlight of my career, just being able to work in the trenches while going to school, because the whole thing with business school is not necessarily about your smarts. It's being able to translate what you already know into a group environment and work on a project. So a lot of times when you see some business schools like Harvard Business School, I don't think they even look at the um, GMAT. Yeah, it's called the GMAT that you get, and they don't even look at those grades. They look at more of your background. So my initial start was helping these entrepreneurs, some just starting out. This is at that time, I'm sure you do remember, when banks were actually loaning people like a lot of money.
Yeah,
Um,
I
yeah,
remember those days.
good old days, right? Yeah,
Good
so
old days.
so the only thing that they had to worry about was putting together their business plan. So they came to us to put together the business plan to make sure it was sound. So that lit me up. Obviously, I didn't grow up in a entrepreneurial family. Well, my father he was in life insurance, so he had his own agency. But I didn't grow up learning that. I'm Caribbean, so the thing is, like, you do your work, you put your head down, you finish your school, and then you have that path where you're working for other people. But I think my parents knew from the time I was little that I'm not that person that I would fit into a cookie cutter role of, VP or CEO. But yeah, so I fell in love when I was doing the business consultant. And after that, I decided to, and I graduated, started working for an economic development agency. And then after that, I decided that I want to have my own business. So at the same time, I opened up a business while I was working with this agency.
Okay, so I think that what I'm hearing is that you were able to leverage all of the education and skills and abilities while you was working to develop your entrepreneurial background, and so you went ahead and started your business. So what is the concept behind Thrive You? I mean, what made you come up with
Tribu.
that name as you were, you know, building this thing up? What was your concept behind that?
Well, here's the interesting thing. So, I've been in this. I've worked for Ideal Image. I think most people have heard the name Ideal Image. I was working for Ideal Image for 10 years. All of a sudden, I woke and I was doing well. Like once you get to a level of understanding how people are and how they think and all of that good stuff, you could do well in the job. But one day I woke up and I was like, I'm bored. Like, this is not me. I don't want to do this. This is not where I want to retire from. So then I thought of the idea, since I've had a business before, that I wanted to start a business. And I probably had 4 coworkers that I kind of assigned as my board of directors. So we would kind of like, while we were doing our work, we would kind of like do things and get ideas for my business. So I had a bunch of different ideas for my business name. And of course, this is before I got online. So I didn't know that most people actually call their company name by their actual name. I was just thinking of Starbucks and Publix and all of those different names, and Yahoo especially, because that's where the Thrive came from. But I just thought it's going to be a concept. I can make it into this entire brand, so it doesn't necessarily have to mean anything specific. But what it does mean, the beginning of it, obviously, Thrive is to help people to thrive, and then the last part was just the cuteness of it. That sounded like Yahoo, if we're going to be honest.
I think it's cool. I
Yeah.
love unique names like that. I mean, take
Mhm.
ALSTNTEC. Nobody ever thought that, a name like ALSTNTEC would be out out there. So I'm always favorable to very unique and interesting names and things of that
Exactly.
nature. So absolutely. And so as you were building this business, you took to marketing. So what type of marketing do you do? You focus mostly on the branding part or just the marketing of products? What area of marketing are you focused on primarily?
Well, I can tell you initially when I got online, because I knew nothing about the online space as far as the business goes, I got online. There were all these experts showing up, right? Um, and this is the more confidence than anything. So here I am with someone with 20 years of experience, and I later found out it's imposter syndrome, it's called. So I had this major imposter syndrome that I didn't really know anything, and how could I even like help people with their business? And that wasn't my idea. My idea coming in was to be a social media manager. So I was doing that for a little while, but I got bored of it really quickly just because um, it wasn't really just about liking and commenting. I wanted to bring it further and help people with their business development to help those people turn into clients. So I did a session with a coach. I think she was just starting out, but she was really good and she was offering these like really discounted sessions. I did a session with her. I told her about my background. She saw my LinkedIn profile and she's like, wait a minute, why are you a social media manager? You could be helping people to build their business. So the whole time I thought, no, I can't, because I talk about building businesses, we're talking about the numbers and the accounting and all the finance part. But then, of course, I learned online, a business coach doesn't really necessarily look at that. So I kind of did something in between. I wanted to help other entrepreneurs, especially professionals coming out of the corporate world, take their expertise and monetize it. Because I know for a lot of people, especially, and I like to work specifically with Hidden Figures when we think about that movie. It's the people who are brilliant at what they do, but they're typically overlooked and no one notices them because they're not allowing others to notice them. So it's really about helping people who are brilliant at their craft, but they just don't know how to turn it into a business or they just don't know how to profit from it. So that's really, that's where I focus on.
Hmm. Okay, that is really interesting. I think of all the folks that I've interviewed over the last couple of years, either focused on just primarily either branding of a product or a service, or just the marketing, which is how the
Hmm.
technique. But you're kind of like, I like the fact you're in between because now there's like all these businesses that are out there that really don't know how to monetize what they have, and they're such great ideas, and so you're helping with them. And so, according to your bio, you really went out there and helped people, make over $1 million. So talk a little bit about that.
Well, the big thing for me, it's more about developing that revenue stream. So obviously for everyone, and we hear different things online about how I'm a seven-figure coach. From what I have seen, it's almost impossible to do that with just one different revenue. So what I do is I help them to not only do the one-on-one coaching piece, but I help them to now book workshops and book conferences and then have the small side products. Because what a lot of people do, especially when they come from learning from a coach online, they just think about that one revenue stream, which is the one-on-one coaching. So I've had clients come in and, say if they charge $5,000 or $8,000 for a coaching session, not everyone in that journey or everyone who wants to work with them is going to be able to afford that. However, if they have a $99 product, maybe if they have 1,000 people or they have 10,000 people in their audience, that's going to be a lot easier for them to enter to start working with them before they start working with them one-on-one. So that's pretty much how I've helped my clients. The biggest thing that I've seen, and she's definitely not a client, I haven't worked with her yet, but there was someone who approached me who is easily an influencer on Instagram. She has over 250,000 fully engaged audience members. Like she gets at least, because you've seen people with a lot of followers on Instagram, and when you look at their likes on their photos, it's maybe like 100 people. But she gets at least like 1,000 to 3,000 likes on each post. So I was asking her, well, how much money are you making from the people on Instagram? And she has not made anything. So it's examples like that where you have like, hundreds of thousands of followers, and even like sponsors would pay you just to talk about their product. Some people don't really necessarily think about that. They don't know how to turn that into dollars. So for me, it's not more about, it's less about the money and more about the impact. But we
Hmm.
know that the more money you have, the more people you can impact and the more you can put into the resources.
Okay, awesome. So can you give our listeners maybe like two things that business owners are doing that is a huge mistake when it comes to that, and why they are, in that situation? What are some of the two biggest mistakes that you see business owners making?
Okay.
You gave one, but I would like to hear like two more.
Okay, yeah, I can. I'll tell a bunch, and something that they can do to change that. These are the lessons I learned. So as when I first started first started on Instagram, and then Facebook was when I started to make money. Well, more money, and I got into groups. I shared a lot of value just because I'm just sharing my expertise, and everyone got excited. I created my own group. They joined my group, and I learned about building lists. And so everyone was on my list. I would send them an email every single day. Finally, when I put out an offer, people were almost insulted that I was asking for money. So the biggest thing that, one of the biggest things at least that I see is that you do not condition your audience to understand that you are actually charging for a service. So that's something like if you're building your list by at least the second or third email, you should at least let them know that you're selling something. Because, I mean, here's the thing, people want to buy. If they see that you're the solution to their problem and you tell them, hey, I have this workbook and it's going to help you to, whatever, let's give an example of putting together a business plan where you can get investors or you can get partners. I have this product for you and I know this is going to work for you. It's not necessarily about wanting to take their money, it's wanting to help them out. So that's one of the things, not putting out any offers, at least initially. The other thing that they do that I see a lot of business owners do, and it's almost because it's a patience thing, they try to, it's a spamming technique, really. Everything you're throwing out, you're trying to sell something, you're trying to sell your services, your coaching services. But people are not necessarily looking to buy a coach, they're not looking to buy into the services, they're trying to look into the solution. So people will try to sell offers that they think people want when no one has said that they want it. So actually that's a different one too.
That's
um
actually an excellent one,
yeah,
because I see that as well, where people are just putting things out there, thinking, oh, I'm just going to market to everybody and
hmm,
anybody. And we all know the rule of thumb is you can't get to any and everybody. You have to find the people that want what you have, and
exactly.
then figure out how you're going to fix their solution so that they feel confident in buying from you. And that takes a little bit of work, and I think a lot of small business owners kind of want to, take the easy road or the
Oh
path
yeah,
of the least resistance and say, hey, I'm pretty sure that if I market to everybody in my Facebook group, I'll get one or two people. But you really want actually quality people coming to you, correct? Right?
exactly. Yeah, and I think
Hmm.
that the thing too, it's hard when you try to market to a lot of people, because when you think about specific messages, I'll give you an example of mine. So initially, of course, I didn't do this. I didn't necessarily, I was that person who was just like, oh, I'll speak to someone, I'll speak to everyone, until I was in a group and someone shouted me out and she called me. My title was a motivational speaker. So I was like, I'll never sell anything if people just think I'm a motivational speaker. And that's another mistake, just putting out those motivational quotes and not putting out offers. But here's a big one that I did that really calls them in, and it really impresses people when we're on a sales call. Um, I always talk about what it feels like to be overlooked, undervalued, dismissed, getting your ideas taken by someone else. When you share the idea, they're just like, oh, okay, we can think about it later. But when someone else shares the idea, everyone's celebrating and having a dance party. So my clients get that because they're so brilliant at what they do, but because they've been kind of taught to put their head down and do the work, no one recognizes their genius.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that. I just think it goes back to, again, building relationships
Yeah,
with your followers, and really getting to know who they are and what their needs are, and they understand what your needs are, and that you're a human being, that you're also a person, that have feelings,
exactly.
thoughts. And I think a lot of times we forget about that as small business owners because we're looking for that next sale, right? So
Hmm.
just building that relationship is key to everything. It's is key to growth as well, because then you get to see how you're changing and looking at things, and then you can understand the customer as well. So those are some really, really good tips and things like that. So Deborah, you've been featured on Oprah Magazine and the New York Times for your marketing. How was that experience for you?
Well, it was quite interesting. So I'll tell you this. I'll tell you how funny this story was. So this is when I used to have I had a personal shopping business, and someone called me up because I didn't realize it's not necessarily the editors from Oprah Magazine. It's freelance writers. So someone called me up. I was in the mall doing some client work, which at the time I was doing some personal shopping, and they called me up and they said they're calling for a article for Oprah Magazine, and they wanted to ask me a series of questions. Now, keep in mind, this is a combination of me being in New York, a New Yorker, which we kind of like give someone the side eye. This is kind of like when I first started my business, and not a lot of people were doing this. So I would get calls a lot from competitors just asking price and my business model, all of that stuff. So this is like months into it, I was kind of getting sick of it. So when the reporter called and was asking these very specific questions, I kind of thought this is not, and of course, I mean, there's no way this is Oprah Magazine, right? So my interview was, I can say it was super dry because I was giving her like 1 or 2 word answers. But the great thing about it, she's a journalist. She was able to put together a story from there. But yeah, so they pretty much found me online, which is amazing. I know a lot of people go out and they pitch like, they pitch the journalist and they pitch the editors and everyone else, but that sometimes if you really stand out, you don't have to do that. And then from the Oprah Magazine article, then the major publications will pick it up. So the New York Times picked it up. I have another business too. So the other business
Okay.
I have a business where I sell online, and people still wear tights, but online leg wear. It's from Europe. So I actually, and this was a while ago. So this was the business right after that I started right after working for the Small Business Development Center. So do you remember when Oprah had her show and
Mhm.
there was that crash on the Hudson in New York
Oh yes,
that
I
Friday?
remember.
Yeah. So
Hmm.
okay, I'll tell you the unique concept about this business that I have that's Legret. 90% of my clients are men. So I have actually pantyhose for men, but it's really like you see athletes wear them. So they're like support, and some of them have that they have that really tight leg area. So a lot of people, of course, it's very unique that I have 90% of my clients that are men. So somehow they heard about it. It was Oprah show. I received a call, somehow they heard about it, and they sent me their FedEx or whatever number it was to overnight all these pantyhose so they can inspect it. It was supposed to air on that Friday, but of course that crash happened. It was preempted. So that was like my second Oprah experience. But yeah, I think typically if you really stand out and you have something innovative and
Hmm.
unique, they'll actually find you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just find it fascinating that most of your clients are men that do pantyhose. So I'm pretty sure that
Yeah.
there's going to be some people that are going to rewind and listen to how you said that,
Yeah,
and then they're probably going to click on your link and say, "Hey, can you tell me about those pantyhose that
oh,
that
that's a
Oprah wanted you to have?" I'm pretty sure that they're going to want to do that.
yeah,
So
that's a
let me ask.
completely different website altogether. But
Oh,
yeah,
yes, yes, yes,
yeah.
yes. So let me ask you a question. Are you involved in any activities that are going on in the next few months that you would like people to know about, or maybe doing any webinars?
Yeah, I'm actually the great thing, and I'm not sure if it's going to air at this time, but I have an event, well, a program that starts March 4th. I train people on how to use LinkedIn and leverage it and monetize it too. So I have a program that starts on April 4th. It runs for 6 weeks, and it's really helping people take their idea, connect with the right people, because, like you said, it's about building the relationships and really standing out as an expert to your audience. So it's really helping them to do all of that, and then later, get into the type of conversation where now they're taking people from LinkedIn off to the phone and helping them become a client. So I have that program.
Mhm.
And then the NCAA conference, the women's conference or women's finals, it's not a conference, the women's finals will be here in Tampa the first week of April too. So I'm actually speaking on helping women women athletes transition into business. So I'm speaking on that. So those are the two things that I have coming up right now.
Nice, fantastic. And so let me ask you the final question, which is what do you need personally and professionally to thrive in what you're doing? What do you need?
Me, I need to have
Yep.
more organizational skills, meaning an admin person. But I think, I have a virtual assistant, but when it gets to that level, I actually want to have someone that I would bring in who would come in like on a regular basis and just help me with or just maybe like 3 times a week and be my assistant. So that's the biggest thing that I need. I think the secret to success, just period, especially when you're online, is focus. There's a lot of
Mm.
noise. There's a lot of people giving advice. So that's something
Mhm.
that's really, I'm partially there, but that's something that's super important, especially online.
Okay, absolutely. So give everybody your contact information and where they can find you.
Sure. So thrivoo.com is where my website is. It's THRIVOO. Or if you find me on social media, you can look under Deborrah Ashley, or you can look under if you type Ask Deborah, of course my Ask and my first name, you'll find me online too, on any platform.
Awesome. So there you have it, everybody. She is talking about how she can help you monetize your business if you feel that you are missing anything in terms of revenue. She's the lady that's going to help you do that. So if you want to click on some of the links that she has down here on her page or go to her website or email her, you can definitely connect with Deborah and ask your questions on how she can coach you into monetizing your business. And if you can't get in touch with her, make sure you contact me and I will definitely make the connection. And also to remember to like, share, and vote for your favorite podcast participants. Make sure that you are liking this interview if you'd like to hear more, and let me know exactly what you're looking for in the podcast for 2020. And with that, I want to thank you, Deborah, for being on the podcast today and being part of the movement.
Thanks so much, Anne. I really enjoyed this.